Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. If you didn't check out my video earlier in the week talking about the best and worst games of 2024, welcome back. I know it's been a few weeks, I apologise for the silence. As I said in that video, it wasn't really super planned, it just kind of happened. And I will be talking about the overskill system very soon, most likely next Friday, because I do still want to talk about it. It's an important system change and I'd like to cover it and give my thoughts on it even if it's a bit late. But if you didn't check out that video earlier in the week, please do consider doing so. I'd greatly appreciate it. Going forward, I'm going to be having 2 videos a week, one being Payday themed and one being non-Payday themed, and the non-Payday one will change week to week, and I've got some really cool plans coming up, including a couple of really big passion projects I'm excited about, so feel free to check them out if you happen to see them in your sub box. But if you're here just for the Payday stuff, no worries at all. I hope you enjoy what we do in 2025. But this video is going to be a bit more chill, and dare I say even slightly lazy, because I'm basically using you guys for content here. Sorry about that, but I thought this would be a good idea because you guys get a lot of my thoughts in videos. That's kind of how this works here on this channel. I give you my opinions on everything happening in the Payday space. But I feel like even though obviously I encourage your comments and reply to them and talk to you guys, we don't really bring them up much in a video. So what I'm doing today is I've handed the mic to you guys, and I want to know, going into the new year, what your current thoughts are on Payday 3. So what I did was I put a post out just under 24 hours ago and asked you all to give me your current thoughts on Payday 3, whether you're optimistic, pessimistic, if you don't care anymore at all, either way. So what I'm going to do is go through and just see what some of your thoughts are, maybe offer my thoughts on your thoughts. A lot of thoughts going on here, but you know, I'll always find a way to yap about something when it comes to Payday. I think you're used to that by now. So if you enjoy this video and you want to stay in touch with all future content on the channel, Payday or otherwise, please feel free to click subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. And while you're down there, click the like button if you enjoy the video and would like to see more. Helps get the video out in the algorithm and really does support me. So, as I said, I put this post out trying to basically figure out what you all are feeling about Payday 3. So what we'll do is we'll start by going through a few of the top comments, because obviously they'll have been filtered to the top. A lot of you maybe agree with them or disagree with them, but we'll see. I'll go through a few of those and then have a bit of a scroll through and pick out some key ones and just see how everyone's feeling and maybe intertwine my thoughts as we go. If you want to hear my specific thoughts on Payday 3 at the end of the year, as I said, that video put up on Tuesday, and talk about that for a few minutes, and it's worth just referring you over there rather than wasting time here. So let's see what some of the comments say about this. I've had a little bit of a look over a couple of them, but I've not looked very much in depth, so I'm intrigued to see what everyone thinks. First one from Mint saying they're neither optimistic or pessimistic. If they can improve the game, good, but if they fail, there are other pastures, which I think is probably the best way to sum it up. So actually, thank you all very much for watching. That sums up the video. I'll see you all next week. Take care. Okay, no, seriously, I do actually think this is probably the best way to be, because especially with how we've left Payday 3 at the end of 2024, with the decisions that Starbreeze executives have made that I've waxed lyrical on repeatedly in previous videos, and I don't really want to go over them too much unless something specific comes up, I think it's probably for the best that we kind of take a step back and just kind of wait and see what happens with Payday 3. We only know a few things happening, a character pack, and a few system changes like the skill system, Armor 2.0, and now overskills. We don't know when they're coming, how frequently updates are going to be even, or anything like that. We just kind of have to take it as it goes. We're kind of going into 2025 relatively blind, and that may work out in our favor. It also may very well not work out in our favor. We don't know. So I think being overly optimistic or pessimistic is probably just not a good idea. I mean, being pessimistic generally is just not always a good idea anyway. That's just how I am. But I think that optimism also, it's worth just kind of working back on that and staying realistic, so I can really appreciate that. Chains Plays Games. As a fan of the game for over a decade, despite the neglect on console, I genuinely don't know why anybody would ever want to play this game with the state it's in. As someone who pre-ordered the game, I regret my decision. The lack of direction, identity, consistency, and loyalty dedication to the game from Starbreeze has made all my years of anticipation as a console player for nothing. The game has been a letdown since release, and without them putting their heads down, stopping all of the projects in their entirety, including Baxter and the PUBG crossover, and putting all hands on deck solely on Payday, I think the game is dead. It has a chance to come back and have a resurgence, but until they make the proper dedication to the game and listen to the community to quickly fix the game, it is dying. The game's awful skill system, combined with the identity crisis of not knowing if it's a gritty cover shooter similar to Payday the Heist or if it's an arcade-like shooter similar to Payday 2, is truly what is keeping myself and many others away, I'm sure. Doesn't help that they insisted on creating a UI and social system worse than Call of Duty's garbage. Okay, lots to talk about here, Chains, and really funky profile picture. Is that what you looked like while typing that? No idea, but it's how I feel after reading it, but a lot of really valid points, genuinely. Let's break these down bit by bit, because I think there's quite a few things I really want to talk about. First off, regarding the pre-order, I know there's plenty of people like that, and as I've said previously, if my content played a part in you placing a pre-order, that's a lot of peas, and you find yourself predictably being pessimistic or piddled about the purchase of the pre-order. I'm trying really too hard here. Point being, if watching my videos impacted you pre-ordering it and you are disappointed as a result, I'm still very sorry for that. I've talked about this previously, but there's a whole list of factors as to why it didn't work out the way we did, and we were definitely used as a promotional tool because we were all excited for Payday 3. We've been over this all before. Doesn't make us faultless, but there is definitely a lot of things that were going on around that time, and I apologize for the part that I played in that, as other creators have previously. But interesting, first off, the lack of direction, identity, consistency, and loyalty dedication to the game from Starbreeze has made the anticipation as a console player for nothing. There is a whole argument about the console players that, the reason Payday 2 on console kind of got left in the dust twice, well, 3 times actually with Nintendo Switch, yikes, was because that they were focusing on Payday 3 and that Payday 3 would come out and make up for it all. And I think it's definitely fair to say that, waiting for Payday 3 and then it coming out the way it did can definitely disappoint console players. I totally feel you on that front. I think we still win out on the fact that despite the problems that it's caused with the Microsoft and Sony approval system, we have had every Payday 3 update consistently on all platforms at the same time, but, some launch issues occasionally, like PS5 having a problem 12 hours into launch, that kind of thing. But generally, widely speaking, even if updates have been a lot slower than we want, at least they have been consistent on all platforms, so I defend them there, and I think that is really nice. Would it have been a lot easier and probably more logical for Payday 3 to have just done PC? In hindsight, probably yeah, but I'm grateful they didn't, because as a console player, I got to experience it on the platform I prefer most, so I'm happy with that. Still more P's coming up. There's going to be a lot of alliteration in this video, clearly. Without them putting their heads down and stopping on all the projects, including Baxter and the PUBG crossover, and putting all hands on deck solely on Payday, I think the game is dead. Let's just be blunt here, that's not going to happen. They are not going to pull Baxter, they're not going to pull the PUBG crossover. The thing is, when a lot of these press releases are made, they're official. They're sealed in blood and whatever else you want to sign an agreement in, depending on who you are. But the point is, they only tell us about these things when they're locked and sealed down. And it was one point that the acting CEO, Matsuel, made when the initial reduced investment and team thing came out in November, which was that they can't tell shareholders and anyone else what's happening until it's official in the report, because that would lead to accusations of insider trading, etc., etc. They have to keep it official and legal and only declare things when they're ready to declare, which means once they shared that information, it was locked in and that was it. So Baxter already having funding and agreements with Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons & Dragons, they've got that IP license, that's not getting pulled. The PUBG crossover, again, that's been signed, doesn't that's getting cancelled. Unfortunately, it is a case of we now know what they're doing, and it's kind of like, without being too dramatic, it's kind of like the metaphor of, the Titanic steering into the iceberg. The ship can try and steer away from it, but we already know it's going to hit the ship and we're just going to have to roll with it, basically. Very dire comparison, but you get my point. It's one of those things where we kind of can see the problems that are with these agreements and the things they can cause in terms of trouble for Payday fans, but we just kind of got to roll with it. There's not a lot we can do about it. We have to just hope that this smaller team that Andreas and Almir are helming can still pull off some really great things. And I have faith in the developers themselves individually, but the size of the team and the investment they're getting, that will impact things. We'll just have to wait and see. I don't know. And saying things about the awful skill system, we know that's being changed, that is being worked on, so that's good. And also the identity crisis, that is something that Andreas mentioned in the last interview I did with him and Almir. That is something they're looking at exploring in year 2 and trying to really hone in at least a particular direction so that Payday 3 feels like it has more of a specific tone, which I hope they really do manage to accomplish. I don't know how they'll do it, when they'll do it, or in what way, but I'm really intrigued to see if they can actually pull it off. It'd be really cool to see. And as for the UI and social system, I mean, I'd like to see a better home UI because they've updated the visuals of it, but the layout is still very similar. But realistically, in the pecking order, that's got to be quite low, surely. So either way, really long comment, and I like getting these answers where we get a lot of detail and explanation, so thank you very much for that. Next one, though, much shorter. I don't feel nothing at all for this game, already moved on. Fair enough. I think Starbreeze has cancelled the offline mode promised. Now this is an important one I wanted to bring up. Yes, AC, I think Starbreeze has cancelled the offline mode promised as part of Operation Medic Bag, and he's just refusing to acknowledge it because it would hurt DLC sales. Not buying anything for Payday 3 until they deliver it. The problem you've got is, again, and there'll be certain things I say a few times in this video, but smaller team, smaller investment. Important to remember throughout everything that they're doing right now going into year 2. That means Starbreeze have to be very tactical and very logical and at least plan as best as they can how they use the staff and money they have. Those resources are now more limited, which means every decision they make with them has that extra bit of significance. It's that extra bit of weight, because putting one developer on the wrong thing last year when there were more devs is not great, but you have a bunch of other devs still doing things. Now with a smaller team, if you make one developer do the wrong thing, that's going to impact things more because that's a bigger percentage of your devs. If you have 50 devs working on a project and you move one to the other thing, that's only 2% of your workforce. But if you have, say, 20 devs and you move one dev over, that's 5% of your staff. It gets bigger and bigger. So you can't can't afford to make mistakes. You can't afford to prioritize the wrong things. This is a point I really did want to talk about because offline mode was promised as one of the big things of Operation Medic Bag, which was to conclude by the end of 2024. And based on everything we've seen from Starbreeze, Matsuel, etc., Operation Medic Bag is over. That's one of the big reasons why the funding got cut the way that it did. I'd still say that I think funding got cut much more than the Operation Medic Bag funding being pulled, but that's up for debate and we can talk about that in a different video. I already did several times. But my point being, that means that offline mode, as it should be, was never delivered in Operation Medic Bag. We got a solo mode with some bits of offline mode strewn in between, but not a proper offline mode. Are we actually going to get that? I don't know. It's come up in conversation. They've said that they're still working on it. But the thing is, as you've said, I don't think Starbreeze are at a position now where they can openly say things aren't happening. They have to keep everything, for lack of a better term, on the table so that they can really decide what the priority is. They're not going to cancel a feature, but it may well be that something like offline mode, they look at it and go, do you know what? This should matter, but we've got about 5 other things we've got to do first because people are asking about those more. Let's make those happen. Because ask yourself this, even though offline mode should have just launched with the game, and it's really stupid that it didn't, and I will forever back that, don't get me wrong. What would you rather have? A fully functional offline mode that tops what we have with solo mode now, or a new skill system? Would you rather have a functional, fully offline mode, building on the solo mode, or would you rather have Armor 2.0? The problem is, you're going to get different answers from different people, and I think Starbreeze are probably thinking in their head right now, Armor 2.0, skill revamp, things like that, are just that tiny bit more important, and I wouldn't blame them for thinking that, but I don't love, like you, that offline mode is seemingly getting pushed aside. Maybe it isn't, but until they say anything more that actually really locks it in, you just don't know. So I can understand the difficult position they're in based on the resources they've been given. So not outright saying whether something's happening or not, I can't blame them. They have to kind of keep things open in the position they're in more so than ever. We know some of the things they're working on. Hopefully we can get more information on what's coming down the line. But until they really hit the ground going into 2025 and really start to see how their plans are executed over the course of a month, 2 months, 3 months, and how much they can actually get done. Hopes and promises are one thing, actions and proof are another. We've got to see them lead by proof. It's something Almir says constantly. So we'll see how much they output and how often, and maybe we can see what else can come later in the year. Hopefully a fully offline mode will happen, but you just don't know. Next up from Nick here, I've completely given up on Payday 3. One can only go through so many It's So Overs and Whiz So Back cycles until they give up all hope. I got the gold edition pre-order and liked it initially, but if I knew the game would turn out this way, I would have refunded, and I wish I did. Unfortunately, a sentiment I feel like a lot of people are feeling. You know, I've talked a bit about my personal friend group feeling like they don't really want to play the game at all. One of my friends picked it up because it was on Game Pass, and after it left Game Pass, he bought the game on sale, hasn't played it once since. One of my closest friends got the gold edition pre-ordered, hasn't played it since, I think, Boys in Blue, and I've said a few times, you've got to at least check the new heists out and see what you think. He just doesn't care. And I think that's a general sentiment, and it's a shame because, you know, Almir asks the question, what would you want to make you come back to the game? To some people, there is just that apathy where they don't really have anything to bring them back because they're just so hurt from the game's launch that they never are going to check it back, or they've seen so many of the It's So Over and We're So Backs, as you've said, that they just kind of are numb to it. I feel quite like that now, because every time we get something that's positive, there's something bad that comes after it. But every time something bad happens, there's a bit of hope, and you get excited again. And it is peaks and troughs every single time. Giving up on Payday 3, it's sad, but I can't blame you. Based on the attitude that you're given here, I really cannot fault it. Butts and Stuff, what a username, says, depends on how you look at it. New content is where I'm worried, but bug fixes, Armor 2.0, and stuff like that is where I'm confident they'll still be able to keep up. Not that bug fixes and optimization will really bring any new players, but still. Yeah, I mean, the devs, like I said, they've proven that they can do good things in the last year. There've been a lot of problems and issues with updates and yada yada yada, but core content, a lot of it has been really strong in certain places. Take away the bugs, if you take away some certain launch issues or things that weren't thought through perfectly in certain details, the overall content is being developed, I would say, fairly well. I would stand by that. I think the devs are doing a good job. But it's interesting that you make a point similar to me, which is we don't know how fast or how much content they can output. We know some things like Armor 2.0 are coming, but what happens with new content? When we get to the end of 2025, will we be able to say we had a bunch of new heists and characters released, or will it be we got 2 heists and a character? We don't know. You can see a few more comments about kind of giving up and not having any attachment or kind of grieving for Payday 3, but the last one I'll pick from the top comments before I scroll through and pick a few more key ones is from Liam Travers, who says, to be honest, I'm just no longer interested. I'll come back when there's updates to check out what's new, but I don't expect any big or frequent updates in 2025, to be honest. Maybe later in September or October we'll start seeing some bigger reworks like the skills, but I'm just so sick of disappointment after disappointment. It's clear Starbreeze don't care, so why should I? I can't change anything the higher-ups decide. I supported Starbreeze as much as possible for years now, and they just don't care about me evidently. I'm tired. The reason I've picked this one out, because I don't want to just read negative comment after negative comment. feelings. If it's coming across like that, I'm sorry, it's really not my intention. I want to get the audience's perspective. It's just sad a lot of you are feeling like this. But it's this sentence in particular that hurts me the most. Because, I don't work for Starbreeze. I'm not paid by them to make these videos, despite what some people still claim to think is going on. Haven't been sponsored by them since Christmas 2021. So I'm doing all of this as a Payday fan, and also because I know a lot of you care about my opinions on Payday, which, thank you, I appreciate that. I've been to Starbreeze twice. I've spoken to devs. I've seen their attitudes. I've seen how they feel. And as I've said a lot of times, the Starbreeze devs really love the Payday franchise. I just know that they're always trying their best, but unfortunately, as you've said, it's about how the higher-ups decide. You support Starbreeze, but it feels that they don't care. And that's the point I've been trying to make. The Starbreeze higher-ups have probably seen my videos and don't like the way I've been talking about their decisions. I've got no proof of that because they don't talk to me. Why would they? I'm just a Payday player and they don't really talk to Payday players, at least not seemingly. But I do wonder if part of it is just that they're not really in touch with how the players are feeling and they really think they're making the right decisions, but just completely aren't and don't really see it until they've locked these things in and go, oh, you guys don't like this? One thing I've loved about Overkill and now Starbreeze right throughout Payday 2 is that even if they made mistakes, even if they screw things up with console, if you look at Overkill and Starbreeze as a studio compared to any other studio in gaming, they are one of the most communicative companies and dev teams that I've ever seen. People love Rockstar and GTA, but do you really get that one-to-one chat with Rockstar devs about GTA Online the way you could easily tweet at Almir and say, love this in a Payday update, and he'd come back and go, ha, cheers, sunglasses punch? Doesn't happen with loads of devs. So they care, but when the higher-ups make these decisions and the funding and support they should get in the game gets pulled, it just makes it look as though Starbreeze as a whole company don't care about the franchise, when it couldn't be further from the truth. And that's one thing that really fueled a lot of the content I made when this news started dropping in November, because I was sat there thinking, I know the people in the studio right now who are working on this game are like, what the hell are we doing here? I just feel for those devs, and I hope they're all doing okay, especially those who got laid off. I hope that if you're still watching these videos and keeping in touch with Payday news and whatnot, I really hope you are going to 2025 and you have already found or are looking to find new work soon, because you deserve it. It just sucks the way things worked out and went out. It's just horrible. Genuinely is. And I recently actually found out that the number of layoffs in 2024 in the gaming industry was bigger than 22 and 23 combined, which, man, we've got to stop with the layoffs soon, man. That's a whole other thing, though. That's a whole other thing. So now, like I said, I'm going to pick out just a couple of extra comments to get general vibes and then kind of come up with some conclusion at the end and just some kind of general message for how we should feel going into 2025, at least from my perspective. Go away, please. What a username again. I feel kind of neutral. The game has potential and the secret has me intrigued, another valid point, but I don't have the same willpower I used to have from both around the Diamond District drop or while playing Payday 2. I used to play Payday 3 a lot when Diamond District came out. The guns feel fun to use, but the spark and flair that keeps me wanting to play just is not there. I feel as though there isn't much reason to come back, and with the way things are going, there might not even be anything to come back to soon. This is another thing to show you that they are trying different things. The secret is something they're still working on for 2025, some new Overdrill-esque thing that isn't Overdrill, that's gonna kind of at least try and bring Payday players together and bring them back in, get them invested in some kind of larger ARG. And I really hope that does work, because they are trying their best and the game does still have potential. Despite where we're at with year 2 and the funding and staff, how many times am I going to say it? You should do a drinking game where every time I say the word staff or funding, you do a shot. Actually, don't do that, you probably die. Point being that, even despite everything happening there, the game has potential until the day it gets announced. If it ever happens where they go, Payday 3, dead, the game's got potential. A lot of games do. It's how that potential is used and unfortunately sometimes squandered that really hurts players. So I'm with you. I'm very similar to you in that feeling neutral phase, because Payday's a franchise I care deeply about, but we've been burned a lot of times and we've also been blessed a lot of times in the last 18-ish months. Skull Kid also makes a really good point. They'll hope it'd be good, but they're not motivated to play the game now. You've also got to make sure that you're updating the game frequently enough to keep people motivated beyond just, let's check out the new thing. Okay, let's go play another game. You've got to make sure that people are, coming back and playing constantly and are motivated to keep coming back. Big updates help with that, but if you then have a lack of momentum or something going wrong, it can kill that. It's very easy to do that. Kreia says, when Payday 3 came out, the opinion was good game lacking content. Over time, the views have grown more nuanced, but that core feeling has always been the same, like in the heart of the game and how it feels, and seeing the potential, but it's just fallen short of that in a few too many ways to fully step out of its own shadow. But because of that hidden promise, they will always stick with the game. Kind of how I am with content for this game. But now that Starbreeze themselves have seemingly given up or at least reduced their investment, the chances of actually getting there somehow feel lower than ever. I still think the game could make it, but I have never been more distanced from it than I am right now. It would take some really big changes to pique my interest, and I'll probably look into it in more depth in a year or so. And another argument is, Almir said, if you're going to support Payday, we need you now. You can't come back in 2 years because there might not be a game. And it's very true, but unfortunately, I said it back then and I say it again even more so now. How can you expect people to keep checking in if your parent company or your parent executives don't seem to care either and are pulling your funding. Devs can try all they want, but the fans are only going to go so far, and I really do think it's a sad truth here, and I feel a lot of your sentiments. One big argument I made going into Payday 3 was I was looking forward to playing a Payday game that I would play casually. I wouldn't just play it for content, I'd play it because I enjoyed it. Because as much as I love Payday 2, and it means a lot to me, not just for this YouTube channel, but as a game I've loved for years and years, the last couple of years I was a little bit tired of playing it because I was only doing it for content. I did not load up the game to play it casually with friends. No one else really cared. They kind of moved on. A lot of them were console people, so fair enough. But I just kind of was like, I've played enough of this now, and I would only pick it up when I was streaming it. So I was looking forward to Payday 3 to be like, a Payday game I'll play casually and stream. I don't play it casually. I haven't played it casually in a real long time. It just kind of sucks that that's happened so quickly. I figured that would happen in 5 or 6 years, not 5 or 6 months. I'm being careful with how many other comments to pick out here because there are a lot that are just very negative, and it's not a problem with you guys. I mean, some of you have got great taste, like in Gareth here with Thomas Roscoe, but, you know, some of you are really feeling very similarly to each other, saying, you know, worst live service, you know, bad things outweigh the good. Since Operation Medibag couldn't be delivered, I'm not feeling anything for the game now. You know, things like this that just show a general lack of sentiment or excitement towards the game. And I think it's just heartbreaking to see. There are definitely people who are optimistic, and I will talk about that in a minute. I'm going to do my own little conclusions towards the end because I want to address every kind of aspect of the fandom. But we'll finish off with this comment here from Stakeout 12 Gauge Primary 1, who says they've got two different sides, one that's more realistic and one that's more optimistic. And here's the realist side first. They're going to slowly swindle the budget and devs on Payday 3 and not give Almir and Andreas nearly enough resources to really make the game click. They're a publicly shared company after all, and it'll be hard to tell stakeholders why investing in a game that took years to develop and hasn't made any profit should continue to get full support over another project. So Baxter or whatever else they do down the line, like that third game we know is coming in 2028. A very valid point. The optimist side is saying with the smaller expectations and team, Almir and Andreas will be smarter. Instead of a new live service model of seasons, which don't really belong in the first place, they'll go to more Payday 2 style DLC, where a DLC could just be a weapon pack or a heist or a character pack, which is more easy to ship out and fix bugs than with a huge season drop. Well, one thing I will say is that is something that Almir and Andreas kind of hinted at in the last interview. They are trying to go back more to a Payday 2 style attitude where they don't tell you what's coming ahead of time, they just drop what they want when they want to. And I hope they do what you're saying here of just dropping different things. The issue with doing that though is if you only do a weapon pack and then wait 2 months and then suddenly drop a character and then wait 3 months and drop a heist, that kind of pacing doesn't work in the same way, like I've said previously, that Payday 2 managed to pull off, because especially in a post-Fortnite world, which, you know, I've said before, I'm an enjoyer of Fortnite, I don't hate it the way a lot of people do, but especially since Fortnite kind of became one of those big games that proved that you could get constant content updates and constant reasons to keep coming back, every other game's been trying to play catch-up. Some have done it better than others, and unfortunately that means that not only are attention spans a bit weaker generally in society, as I've talked about before, you know, the TikTok Subway servers argument I've made a few times previously, but combining that also with the specific gaming attitude where you've got so many other games being updated constantly, you just rather play those if the game that you like kind of gets an update every 2 or 3 months. It's not worth the time. I think it would be a better idea to do these smaller content drops, but as long as you can bring people back at least once a month, I think that's good. More often would be better, obviously, but let's face it, monthly updates were barely happening last year with a bigger team, so monthly updates happening this year, I don't have a lot of hope for, so we will just see. But as you said, in the realist side, I don't blame a lot of these attitudes because they're not going to have the budget and devs they'd like. That could make the game suffer, and as you made a point of, Matsuel did state, as I've said previously in the live stream he did with Almir, Payday 3 generally has not made any profit so far. Even though they were profitable on, I think, the first few days of sales or something like that, they made a profit on the base game, but, you know, there were loads of refunds, and they've also put more money into the game since. Overall, when you bring all the costs together versus all the sales, they haven't made a profit with Payday 3 across everything. They have made a loss. From a financial standpoint, I did say this at the time, I don't blame them in some ways for saying, you know what, let's pump the brakes a little bit because we're putting money in here and we're not seeing it back. I still don't think it was the right call, though. I still think sticking by Payday, the game that is the only reason your company exists, and trying to honour that fan base, a fan base that has been burned one too many times, and if I'm being completely objective here, has probably given Starbreeze more chances than they actually deserve compared to the average company. Don't say that with any kind of malice to Starbreeze, and I think they hopefully know that I'm saying that, but from an objective standpoint, they've had a lot of chances and burned a lot of bridges, but people keep coming back because Payday fans love Payday. They love what Starbreeze have done with the IP for the most part, and just want to see that IP thrive. So if it doesn't thrive, why bother supporting the company? That's a attitude a lot of people have, and it's coming through in a lot of these comments, so I really cannot blame attitudes like this. I like that you've got an optimistic side and also a realistic side, but I mean, literally, as you go back up to the top, like Mint said, we just got to see if they can improve the game, and if they can't, we're just going to find other games to play. That is the simple nature of it all. And so just to wrap up and just kind of give my overall thoughts, the thing I want to put across most here is, it's very clear from at least my comment section that a lot of you don't have a lot of hope for Payday 3, that you are are going to check in with it maybe and see where it goes, but you're not playing it regularly, you don't really care as much as you thought you would or maybe should, and so now you're looking at other games and just generally checking in or maybe keeping up to date with the news purely via my videos or anyone else's. And that really, really does suck. The thing to remember is there are people on every side of the argument here for Payday 3. There are people who love this game, have loved it since it came out, still love it now, and will support everything that happens and think a lot of the changes have been really good. And I'd never want to invalidate those opinions. It's all about the majority with Payday 3. That's what I've always said. And with gaming generally, the most important thing is to try and account for what most of your players want. If a lot of your players are saying do this thing, you go for it. But that does not mean that the minority opinion is invalid. And I know there are people out there, especially in the Discord server, there are quite a few people in the Payday Discord who are super positive towards Payday 3 still, and are still supporting it every way they can. And I know some of them see videos like these ones and think, oh, they're just doom posting or being negative. Genuinely, I know I had a few months where I was doing that in 2024, but I'm trying to be as balanced as I can now, because I know there are people who are really hopeful for the game and the people who really aren't. I'm trying to see every argument right now, and I'm trying to see every perspective and try and offer my overall thoughts on it. Problem is, a lot of the majority opinions right now are negative, and I just really hope that can change this year. Do I have faith? I don't know. That's the honest answer. I don't think there's a really clear indication one way or the other where it will go, because we have to see how things will be delivered with year 2. So my conclusion going into Payday 3's second year in 2025, what would my advice be for supporting this game? Keep in touch with it. I don't think overly committing right now is a good idea because we don't know where we're going to go. I wouldn't say let it fall off your radar completely. I would say keep an eye on it, keep an eye on what's happening, keep an eye on the updates, and check it out every now and again if you want to, because it's clear a lot of you aren't playing it casually anyway. So to those of you who think you might give up, at least maybe check in every now and again. See what's going on with the news and keep an eye on it, because Payday 3 definitely still has potential. I've talked about this already. Until the day that it gets cut, if it ever does, this game's got potential. It is developed by people who love this franchise and care deeply for it and want to see the best of it, even if those executive decisions don't line up with that, whether they realise that they're doing the bad thing, or at least how we're perceiving the wrong thing or not. The devs, the people working on the ideas and the creative flow are trying their best. And that's what we've got to remember. There are people there who are doing their best to make the game the best they can. We just got to hope they can deliver the dreams that we have and the dreams that they probably have too. You know, they're all hoping for a better Payday 3, just like we are. Whether you've given up on it now or feeling apathetic, let's just see where it goes. I'm going to go into 25 very open with this game. I'm going to keep reporting the news. I'm going to keep sharing my thoughts on it. I'm going to try not to be pessimistic when I can. The downside is, of course, when there is really bad news, you haven't really got a choice other than to just talk about why it's bad. But what I will always do, as I've said before, is whenever I offer criticism, I'll try and give reasons why. Why is this bad? Why does it cause problems for Payday? How can we make it better? You know, I'll always try and do that. I don't want to ever get to a point where I get so annoyed with decisions that I kind of lose sight of the potential of this game. I want it to succeed. It's just, unfortunately, we've burned quite a lot of times, and it makes those attitudes harder to shape in a positive direction. But I do have hope that things can change. Is it as much as I should have? No. But can that change? Absolutely. It's sad that this isn't a super positive video, but I think it's important to try and check over everyone's opinions. And at least for me as a content creator, I check a lot of your comments anyway, but I think it's really good to have done this with a camera on to read through and really properly analyze and actually have to come up with responses with my mouth. That sounds weird putting it like that, but hopefully you understand what I mean by that. Just trying to get those opinions and chat about them, even though none of you are in the room per se. So that's why I did this video. I thought it'd be a really good way to start 2025 off by seeing what the sentiment is, because I also think it'd be interesting if in a year's time we revisit this and see what the sentiment is. Did Payday 3 get altogether cancelled? Did Payday 3's popularity skyrocket through some stupid meme? For our own sake as Payday fans, make sure that you have other games to play and you enjoy playing games. Don't let a franchise that you love not going so hot ruin your enjoyment of games. That's very important. That's happened to me a couple of times last year. You know, my streaming motivation was completely knocked when I couldn't play Payday 3. I just kind of stopped streaming for a bit. I don't want that to happen to me again. I don't want that to happen to any of you guys. So let's just focus on playing the games we like in this year and keeping an eye on Payday 3 and hoping that against all odds, because it really would be against all odds, in the next year before Baxter comes out, because it's still a year plus away. It's coming out in 2026, but we don't know when in that year. It could be December for all we know. It could be just under 2 years away. Whenever that comes out, until then, we've got Payday 3 to focus on, probably beyond then, because let's face it, a lot of you don't even care about Baxter, which honestly is completely fair. It's a completely different game to Payday 3. But until that point, at the very least, we all just have to live in hope that Payday 3 can get better, and that's what I'm going to try and do on this channel with these weekly Payday 3 videos. Whether that's a dev blog update, whether that's my thoughts on something specific in Payday 3, or a different idea video, whatever it may be, we'll see where we go. I'm not expecting much from Starbreeze until February, because they're often very quiet in January. So next week, unless something happens, I'm planning to discuss the overskill system at last, so look forward to my thoughts on that. that, which is nice because it's a positive system, and there are a few positive systems coming for Payday 3 that certainly can give us a positive direction to move in with this game, assuming everything else goes as well as those do. Either way, thank you all very much for watching this video. I greatly appreciate you all hanging out and seeing my thoughts and your thoughts on Payday 3. Thank you to everyone who commented. I know I didn't get through all of them, but all of your opinions really do mean the world to me. I will definitely look through and read through a few more of these privately because I just want to see everyone's thoughts. But as always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Just because I'm not going to read them for this video doesn't mean I don't want to see them. What are your thoughts on Payday 3 going into 2025? Let me know everything and why in the comment section below. As always, as I said already, if you like the video, please leave a like and click subscribe if you want to keep in touch with all future content. But until the next one, thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all very soon. Take care.